Hello class and welcome to the second half of the tutorial for Excel Module 1. In this part of the tutorial we're going to be focusing on formatting a worksheet as well as adding charts to your worksheet and a few other minor things, correcting errors, etc. So getting started here, as you work through your textbook project you're going to get to a point where you have a spreadsheet that looks kind of like this on the left, where you've got all of your data there, but your data is in a very boring format. So if you were to share it to someone else, it would be hard to read. It wouldn't be very interesting. So we're going to look in the back half of the textbook project to format your worksheet to look a little bit nicer, make it a little bit easier for someone else to read. So to start out, changing a cell style. So you can do a lot of different things with the way your cells work, but Excel comes with a bunch of predefined styles that you can utilize. So here I've got the unformatted spreadsheet, and I've got my title and my subtitle up here at the top. To make my title style more conducive, more standing out, make it more interesting, I need to click in that cell, and then I need to go to this option here that says Cell Styles, which is under the Home tab. When I click on Cell Styles, I get a whole bunch of options. And it's really nice because as I hover over these different things, you can see that it live previews for me. It shows me what the cell would look like if I made that choice. I haven't clicked, I'm just hovering over these options. So you can see it keeps changing to give me an idea what it would look like. Because this is my top heading, I believe in the textbook project they ask you to use heading 1. So I will just choose heading 1 as my option. And once I click on it, it commits that to the cell. So that is now the style formatting for that cell. I can do a similar thing with my subheading here where it says monthly estimates. I can click on cell styles, and since this is my second heading, I can make it heading 2. So it's a little bit smaller, doesn't stand out quite as much, but it still differentiates itself from your data in your spreadsheet. I can also change the font. So Windows and Office products come with a whole bunch of pre-established fonts. Not everybody has the same fonts on their computers, but most fonts are pretty common. But I can just go over to my spreadsheet again, and let's say I don't like this font that it comes with by default. I can adjust that. So here you can see it says Calibri. That's the font that's default on my computer. If I hit the pull down, my computer has a lot of different options, and similar to the cell styles, you can see that as I hover over the different options, it live updates so I can see what it would look like if I made that choice. Let's say I want Arial Black because it stands out so nice. I can select that, and then it commits that change. I can also try to make things stand out more by using bold, and I'll also show you italic and underline. So going back over to my spreadsheet, perhaps I want these column headers that show the month to be bolded. I can just highlight that whole row there. You see they got the big box around them and they're all shaded in because they're selected. And I can just choose bold, and now you see that that text is bold and it helps it stand out from the data underneath it. I could also do italics if I wanted to. And these are all click on, click off, so I can turn it on and off as I please. Or I could underline it if I wanted to do that. Just different ways to make the parts of your spreadsheet stand out. I can also increase or decrease my font size. So perhaps I want my left column here for some reason to be larger. I can just hover that, or highlight all of that, and then there's a couple of different ways I can do it here. I have this number here where I can just say, instead of font size 11, I want it to be 16. I type in the number, I hit enter, and it commits it. I could also hit the pull down here and choose from a bunch of different options that it will live preview to see what it would look like. Or I can just do this, up size, down size shortcut arrows. So I get a quick, easy pick. Maybe I just want it a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. I can just select these options. I can also change the color to make things stand out differently. So perhaps again on that first column, instead of it being black, I want it to be red. I can just choose font color here, and I could choose one of the standard colors. I could choose one of these less common colors but allow different darknesses of shades of different colors, or I can even go as far as going into more colors, and there's just a multitude of options here that I could choose, or I could even get completely crazy and use any of the 3 million colors that are available. All of these options are available. Usually you can just stick with the standard pull down options here and get enough colors to meet your needs for whatever spreadsheet you're trying to edit. Something I'd like to note is that when you look in the textbook and it's having you do the textbook projects, it tells you to use very specific colors and shades. So if you go into this pull down here and you see like this really light green, if you hover over it for a time, you can actually see the name of that color. So it's green accent 6, lighter 80%. So in the textbook, they will use that exact text to tell you what color to use. And you can see as I get darker, it says lighter 60%, lighter 40%, lighter 25%, etc. I can also combine cells to try to make my spreadsheet look a little bit nicer. So in the textbook project, they're going to ask you to merge your cells across for your header and your subheader. So right now, the data in this cell is only contained in cell A1. But if I want to put it right here in the middle of my spreadsheet, what I can do is I can drag all the way across here to select all of the cells over the top of my spreadsheet, and I can use this option here under the Home tab called Merge and Center. I can also hit the pull down here just for your information. You could do merge across, merge cells, or unmerge cells, but I want to merge and center, which means it combines the cells going across and it centers the text within the new grouped together cells. So it looks much nicer because it's over the center of my spreadsheet. I can do the same thing for my second row. Merge and center. I can also format rows using cell styles, which is actually what I've already showed you, where I can drag multiples across if I want to format. Again, I've shown you this already, but if I drag across and grab all of these at once, I can format them all together. So I could make them all bold if I wanted to, instead of just doing a one cell at a time. There's also a multiple options of how you want data to look in your spreadsheet. So I can format them to be different styles. So if I wanted my wages to look like money instead of just a number with 2 decimal places, I can highlight those, and instead of general, which is what it says here right now, I could choose these simple options to say make it accounting format, and you can see that it automatically put the $sign and it put a comma in for the thousands place. I could, if I wanted to, also use other currencies. Or there's many options here where I could do currency or accounting, or I can even go to more number formats and I can customize pretty deeply to whatever style I want it to look like in my spreadsheet. I can also adjust the column width. So all of the columns when you start using an Excel spreadsheet have the same width, but there are times when you have text that's too long to fit in with the cell, or you have text that's shorter and you don't need the cell to be quite as wide. And by the cell, I mean the column or row isn't the right size. So you can actually, let's say I thought column B needed to be wider. I can highlight that entire column by clicking on the header, and then if you see my cursor, it changes to a left and right arrow with a vertical bar in it. If I click and hold, and I can drag it wider, or I can make it skinnier. So I could just make this cell be really wide, or I can make this cell be really skinny if I want to. And you see that when I'm dragging, it gives me 2 numbers. It gives me a width in pixels and a width in, I believe, centimeters. But you can drag that to whatever size you need it to be. The other thing you can do is you can actually just take your cursor, put it on the right edge, and then double click. And it will make it the width of the widest piece of text in that column. So if I had a really long text goes here, and then I double click on the right edge of the B column, you see it makes it as wide as that longest piece of text in that column. But I don't want that text there, so then I'll double click on that column header again, and it'll make it skinnier. Another thing that's commonly done, because you can also make your rows taller or shorter if you want, is to actually just grab this triangle up in the upper left corner, which it grabs the entire spreadsheet, and then you can right click on the right edge of column A1, and it will resize all of the columns for you at once. And then you can do the same thing with your rows. You can double click on the bottom of row 1, and then it will make all of the rows the acceptable height for whatever data you have in your spreadsheet. Okay, that's the end of formatting. Now the next thing that they're going to ask you to do in the textbook project is add a pie chart to your worksheet. So if I want to add a pie chart to my worksheet, I need to select the data that I want in my worksheet, or in my pie chart. Let's say I just want to grab all of this data and I want to show it in a pie chart. Once I've highlighted it, I go to the Insert tab because I'm trying to insert a chart into my spreadsheet. And there's a lot of options here, but what I want to insert is a pie chart. And I believe in the textbook project, they want you to insert a 3-dimensional pie chart. So I can just click here, and then it inserts a pie chart into my spreadsheet. Unfortunately, that's not a great pie chart. I'm going to undo that, and I'm just going to grab something that's not quite so even. Let's say I want to take, for January, I want to see all of the expenses. I'm going to insert, again, a pie chart, 3D pie chart. That looks a lot better. Actually, I don't like that either. One more time. If I include the total, that's going to skew my pie chart. So, one more time. Insert pie chart. There we go. Now I get a good view of the expenses for that month. Now you see, because I just grabbed the number column, I can do better than that. I can actually grab the text too, so it gets a better description of what I want to have in my pie chart. So I take this, and now when I insert my pie chart, you see that the labels are a lot better. So now the labels match the parts of the pie chart that they're associated with. A lot similar to what we did with the styles in the text of the spreadsheet, you can also apply some standard styles to your charts. Now again, you can get very detailed with this, or you can just utilize a lot of the pre-built in very generic styles, which are typically good enough for anything people are trying to do. So I've got my pie chart here, and I have my option for chart styles. And Excel will give me several options, and it's similar where I can just hover over them and see how it looks when I utilize those styles. Maybe I like this kind of rounded off corner one, or this one that actually shows the percentages right within the parts of the pie chart itself. Once I find one I like, I can click on it and it will apply that style to my chart. Only took me a few seconds, and it got me good enough for what I'm trying to get as far as how it looks. Now, I can also move my chart onto its own sheet. And I haven't introduced this yet, but Excel has a workbook that can have multiple worksheets. And if you see down here, this is a pre-built one. So I've already got 2 worksheets in here. If I want to have more worksheets, I can always hit the plus sign and add as many worksheets as I want for this chart, or for this spreadsheet. But what I want to do is I want to get this chart. I like how it looks. I want to put it on its own tab so it's not covering up my data like it is right now. I can choose, once I've highlighted on it, I'm under Chart Tools Design. I can move my chart to a new sheet, and I could name it whatever I want. And there you go. Now it's on its own sheet. So continuing on from that, I can also rename it after I've already created it. And you saw me actually name it when I created it, but perhaps I didn't give it the name I wanted. You see my new tab down here called Pie Chart. Maybe I wanted to rename that to January Expenses Chart. If I want to do something like that, what I did is I just clicked in there, and then I was able to just edit it on the fly. I hit enter, and then it commits that tab change. I can also move these around by just clicking and dragging them. And you see the little triangle that appears? It's pretty small, but it's there where you can see the little triangle. I can move it to the end if I want it to be my last tab instead of the middle tab. Just a couple of other miscellaneous things. You can actually edit the document properties. This is to help you find the document or understand what the document is more quickly from your Windows environment. So to edit the document properties, I'm in my spreadsheet. I go to File, which actually brings you to what's called Backstage View. And you see that there are properties here. You can edit these as you please. Maybe I want to call this textbook project, tag it as spreadsheet. I don't know, whatever is appropriate for the document that you're working on to help you find it easier within your Windows environment. Once you're done editing it there in your Backstage view, you can hit your back arrow, which will bring you back to your regular spreadsheet view. In several of the textbook projects and in the regular projects, the textbook asks you to print your worksheet at some point or print your results at some point. None of that is necessary for the assignment that you're going to submit into SAM, but if you want to understand how to print stuff, it is worth going through the process just to understand how it works. But again, you aren't graded on printing the workbook, so if you don't have a printer available or whatever, you don't need to worry about it. But if you want to print your worksheet, you can go back over to your worksheet, and then you can go to File again, and you have an option here for Print. And this brings you into your print preview mode. You can choose the printer that you want to use. You can determine whether you want to print just the active sheet or the entire workbook, which if you had 10 tabs, it would print all 10 tabs. Or you can actually select a portion of your spreadsheet and only print that portion. You can, normal Windows stuff, you can print one-sided or two-sided. You can, if you're doing multiple copies, you can collate it. Landscape orientation is typically how spreadsheets are done, but you could actually move it to portrait orientation, which means the paper is just upright instead of sideways. If you have different size paper, you could use that, margins, and then you have this option to fit it into a sheet, or you can say no scaling, which means if your columns are too wide, you actually end up with multiple pages. You see now I have page 1 of 2 and page 2 of 2. So if I want to scale that back, I can just say fit it to one sheet and it'll shrink it up so everything in my spreadsheet fits. Auto-calculate, we kind of went over this earlier with sum, but if you want to auto-calculate the maximum in a set of data, you could go back over to your spreadsheet. And let's say I wanted to know the maximum month of, let's say, the most expensive month of the year. So I could just highlight all these columns and choose max. And you see that it gives me a column at the end that says, hey, the most expensive month in this grouping is the month that is 320547. So I very quickly can auto-calculate that information. Correcting errors, this is, I think, probably self-explanatory, but if you start typing something into a cell and it doesn't come out the way you want it to be, you can go back in, like double-click to edit it, and then you can say, you know, maybe I didn't want an S on the end of dividends, I just want a dividend. I just edit it as I please and hit enter, and then it commits the new value into the cell. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but just in case you weren't aware, you can always edit what's already there. You could also click in the cell and then edit up here in your what's called the formula bar. So you can you can type whatever you want there and make whatever changes you need to. So you can do that as many times as you need to until you get what you want to have in the cell be there. That's the end of the information for this module. If there's anything you run across working through the textbook project that's not explained here, or not explained in the textbook, or not explained well enough in the SAM training or the SAM exam, always remember that we have that discussion board, the Q&A discussion board, where you can put questions out there for either your fellow students to assist with or for me to assist with. I keep an eye on that, and I hope that you as students keep an eye on that to help your fellow students that might have issues. Or if none of that gets you what you need, you can always email me questions, and I'll be glad to help. As I've said in the syllabus, I do my best to respond within 24 hours on a weekday, 48 hours on a weekend. Thanks.